Hello, Jessica. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Annick. It's so nice to see you.
Same here. It's always a pleasure when we get together.
Exactly, and welcome back from all your travels.
Oh, thank you. I'm pretty excited. I had to say that today I broke out the Chanel for you.
I see that, and I appreciate that very much. You look fantastic.
Thank you, as do you. Always put well together.
Thank
And
you.
which is perfect because you happen to be a stylist.
Correct.
But that's only like
What
one
one?
part. That's only one
One
part
job.
of what you are or who you
Yeah.
are or anything. So I'd love to begin, and if you could give a little bit of an overview to everybody to what you do currently
Okay.
and a little bit where you came from.
Okay. As you know, my background is super eclectic and
Yes.
always has been. So, after sort of a work history that's taken me from everything, including corporate concierge to uh, working as the right hand person to a famous New York City grocer to working at a hedge fund, working at Goldman Sachs twice. I finally, sort of spun out of all those different things and kind of bizarrely, but also, um, I guess, true to my nature, ended up doing styling. So I've been doing that for about 15 years now. And that is, I would say my number one passion. I've always loved fashion. I've always loved style. I've always loved design and beautiful things. And so, sort of making that the heart of, everything that I do is, takes me to this place of wardrobe whisperer, which is my styling business. And I absolutely love that. Um, but having done it for so long and getting so close to my clients, the interesting thing is, they get very comfortable with you and they respect your opinion and they want more from you. And so, as sort of a next step to the styling business, I started doing interiors. Like I just was asked one day and I thought, I mean, why not? Like I love design. I love looking at pretty things. I love selecting pretty things. Let's do it. And so I ended up doing one house in LA, and then another client asked me for his place in upstate New York, and then he bought a brownstone. I ended up doing that, and then it just sort of spun out from there. And I'm still doing it, sort of in tandem with the styling business, and I love it. I mean, it's so much fun, and I'm learning tons. I mean, obviously, interior design is uh, it's pretty massive. You
Yeah.
have to know so much. So it's not just about liking pretty
Yeah.
things. Like I'm like, I'm learning to sort of hone my skills around, architecture and all kinds of things, plumbing, electrical work. I mean, it's crazy what you
Right.
learn. So that's one piece of it. And should I just,
I have a couple questions before we get
yeah,
into
do
the
it.
final piece. Okay, because one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on here is that you are the true essence of what would be considered a multipreneur. And your whole journey, especially your story, where it is so hard to condense, like everything that you just talked about has happened over at least 20 years. And it's been this evolution and all these like little stories and interconnections of people. So I want to dive in a little bit deeper to what those experiences have been for you and how you've ended up doing the interiors, but more so, where did this all seed from? So this idea that you became a stylist, you were living in New York City, and you are working pretty much in corporate and finance, and different variations of that. Now, you having known you for a long time, you have an incredible sense of style and design, and that is just who you are, and you exude that. So, how did you make the leap from, or maybe it's not, maybe it wasn't so much of a leap, but the bridge between working these corporate jobs and then ending up in something much more creative?
That's a good question. And actually, for me, it was sort of more seamless than you would think. Like, I feel like you look back over your life and you think, I did X, Y, or Z. Like, why was I ever there? Or sometimes when you're in a role, you think, like, why am I here and what is this ever going to do for me later? And I was sort of feeling like that when I was working in corporate finance. I
Mm-hmm.
was working at Goldman Sachs and I loved the environment. I loved the sort of intelligence that surrounded me. Everybody was, just smart and motivated. And it was very good for those parts of me, but there was a creative piece that was definitely being stifled. And I mean, you knowing me so long, I would, sort of exercise that creativity every day by, just dressing to the nines every single day. And so I had all these people who would come to my desk in the morning and see what I was wearing, and we would talk about fashion, and that would make me really happy. So, this kind of went on. And at one point, a pretty senior managing director approached me and asked me to do him a favor. I mean, he knew I love fashion. This is the person who was client facing, knew he needed to sort of up his game sartorially, and asked me if I would style him. And I said, sure. I mean, why not? And I did it for free, of course, because I love to do it. And at that point in time, I would have gone through anybody's closet. I would have styled anyone. I loved it so much. So I started with him. Within 2 weeks, I had 10 people from his team. And
10 people?
10 people.
Wow.
I mean, the thing that you should know about, corporate culture, in particular investment banks, is things go like wildfire. Like, the culture is so strong that if one person experiences something and really believes in it and loves it, everybody around them knows they're a similar type of person. This person that they respect sort of vetted whatever this experience was. And so they know it's going to be good for them. And so that's kind of how it came about. And that's why it was so fast and furious. And so I sort of, at that point, I ran the businesses concurrently. Like, I was still working at Goldman. And then I started thinking, like, I need to take this show on the road. So it was maybe a year and a half where I was doing both. And that was obviously not, it wasn't tenable to, sustain that level of, energy.
And you also had a baby.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It's not just like, you're deciding to work these 2 extremely full-time jobs with crazy hours, but then you also start a family.
Yeah, right. I've never been known for sort of minimizing what's on my plate.
No.
Another helping, please, over here. So, yeah. So you're right. And you could only keep that going for so long. And so after you, as you point out perfectly, after I had my baby, I decided, let me just do this full time. Like, I'm not going to go back. And it was a great decision, and I loved it. And it, got me more involved with the people I already loved. And I had more time to take referrals, and I deepened relationships that led to the interior design. So it was a great decision.
I think it's also important to note that you have been very niche in this business. Like, most people would think that, as a stylist, you're going to work with anybody who needs help with their wardrobes.
Yes.
But that's not, that is the case. However, you have niched down to this very specific clientele.
That's such a smart observation.
How would you describe that clientele specifically?
So I think, so you bring up a point that I actually think is very important for, like, anybody starting a business. I think initially what you think of is, I don't want to alienate everyone. Like, I just want to throw my arms out and get everybody inside and hug them all and help them all. And that's a wonderful impulse. But I think if you don't stand for something particular, you sort of, you don't stand out, right? And so I did actually begin, my clients all just happened to be finance, but all my messaging was very general, very broad, for anyone. And I never really hit my stride until somebody pointed out to me, like, look, your deal is finance. Like, you came from that world. You're very valuable in that world. You understand the culture already. You bring so much to the table. You're working with all these senior people. Like, why wouldn't you market yourself that way? And I thought, oh, okay, like, let me try it. Let me pivot and see what happens. And as a result, I got press because now people realize like, oh, there's a stylist who specializes in Wall Street. So Wall Street Journal called me and Market Watch called me. And, like people like to understand that you are something specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was very, very, very good advice. And let me tell you, as a result, it hasn't alienated other people. Like I still go out to LA and work with models and actresses and actors, and they don't care that I'm the Wall Street, like the wardrobe whisperer for Wall Street. They don't care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So because a lot of it's, it's so personal that a lot of the referrals are word of mouth, one way or the next.
Right. And that's, I see that all the time. And actually, it ends up that you've worked pretty much with my whole family.
Yeah.
My sister,
because
my
I
brother.
love you people.
Yeah.
There's nobody better. If I could just fire all my other clients and only work with you guys, I'd be happy.
Oh, Jessica.
I might do that.
Yeah. Well, this is, why would... Here's the other thing. Like, as you work as a stylist, because this has been always so fascinating to me, is... you've worked with me just to go through my wardrobe. Like just recently, within the past few months, we went through and we got rid of 50% of what I own. It was an amazing experience.
It was so good.
Right?
I know, it was so good. Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate because I get the inside scoop with you. So, but it was a transformative experience because, I wrote this book on clutter. Right? Like clutter is my thing. However, when it comes to always your own environment or your own situation. It's a very different thing to sometimes to make decisions on your own, especially when it comes to how you look or how you are portrayed out in the world.
I agree.
Even doing these videos, you and I discussed previous to me even starting them, okay, like how would I want to be represented on camera? Like there's so much more to this than I think maybe some people might understand. That I'm kind of going on two tangents, but one is that when we did the decluttering, when we basically did the wardrobe, I don't know what we did.
Like evaluation.
Yeah, exactly. And to get rid of over 50% of what you own was, on one hand, extremely terrifying. And then,
that's why I was there to hold your hand.
I know.
That's why we had drinks.
Yeah, totally. What I didn't realize was that I actually needed the permission to do it.
You hit the nail on the head.
Right.
Because you're very observant. I don't feel like most people think about it that way, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Like I knew most of the stuff wasn't working for me anymore. I'm not working in corporate currently. And I still was holding on to like all this stuff just in case, or, like whatever emotional ties we have to what we own.
Right.
So when you're working with clients, like you do it in a few different ways. I know that you do these purges or evaluations would be much better because you do keep certain things and you reuse them in different ways. But you also do shop. Actually, why don't you explain a little bit to me, like how you work with people?
Yeah. So the first step, actually, the very first step is making a connection with the person, right? Mm-hmm. I have like a little questionnaire that I'll float, and sometimes people really enjoy taking the questionnaire. It's only like 6 questions because it forces them to look inward and sort of consider a number of things that maybe they weren't thinking about as it applies to their wardrobe. So that's usually a very first step. And I cannot tell you how revealing those questionnaires are. I've saved every one of them since the very beginning because they are fascinating. It's like a psychological evaluation in some ways. And then the next step is just touching base with the person. Like, do we have coffee? Do we do a Skype call? Whatever. And what I'm really trying to learn is about that person specifically, because no two wardrobes are the same. Nobody's needs are the same. Like, I'm not going to dress you like me. You are you. So I need to know, how much do you travel? In what circles do you mix? How much are you expected to be out? What do you do on the weekends? What are your favorite colors? Like, I need to know these things to create something that is so specific for you and that makes you feel like yourself and projects that to the world. So those initial steps to me are so critical. And often, like, I will have like a share of social media. Like, my clients will give me their IG account or their Pinterest. Like, oh, I have a board of things that I've really been vibing and whatever. And I review that, and it's amazing. It's so helpful. So then after that, typically I'll go to the person's home and we do what you and I did, which is basically evaluate every piece of clothing, every bit of jewelry, every single thing that you own.
Literally.
And we talk, yeah,
Everything.
literally. And it sounds so cumbersome, but I think like the initial phase is slow, but it really speeds up when we have established a dialogue, right? Like, you know how it goes. In the beginning, we're talking about every piece. Like, do you love it? Does it represent you? Like, we're asking all these questions of the piece. And at the end, we're just looking at each other and we're like, that's got to go.
Right.
But we don't even need to talk about that. Like, we already know, based on what we've developed, that doesn't work for you. So, you know, there is this bit of elimination, but I think the stronger bit are the pieces that you retain, right?
Yes.
So then you look in your closet, and even if it's only a few things, you know that those things represent you. Yes. Like, as a person, and you, for instance, as a businesswoman, as a brand.
Right.
And that is so powerful. Like, I really think that, you know, as you're thinking about decluttering and as you're thinking about building yourself and your brand, you have to dial into things that are always going to make you feel good. Like, basically remove all the white noise, retain the pieces that you love. And even if you wear those same pieces and mix them up in different ways, you will always look like you. And that's the most important thing.
Well, I think that really gets into like who is the essence of your character, and you really have the genius to bring that out in somebody. With so many options out in the market as far as looks or like, basically how you can look to, they may not always feel like that's authentically like who you are or where that's coming from. So really, like, you are a genius when it comes to this, because you can pick it out. You have your process, but you really know how to like pull that out from somebody.
Well, thank you. But I mean, that's so nice of you to say. But that goes back to that beginning piece. Yeah. You know, like, I've known you forever, so I know who you are and what you want to project. But when I don't know someone, that's why that, you know, getting to know you piece is so critical.
And probably the other thing also to mention is that you never force somebody to be something they're not. Like, just because that coat is in style and you're like, okay, you need to get this because this is the new big hot thing. Like, you never do that with anybody. I know. Like, that is like not.
I feel like it would ruin my credibility, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many things out there, and this is like gets to the core of what's the difference between fashion and style, right? What I'm creating for I'm using fashion, but what I'm creating for a person is their style. Like, let's cultivate your style, not my style, your style. Let's talk about the things that make you happy. Let's talk about the things that flatter you. Let's talk about, you know, how you feel when you put something on, and all that ties into what the wardrobe should be. And that doesn't always agree with whatever the latest fashion is.
Right.
So, and that's fine.
Yeah. Because really, you see, when you look at somebody like that, you know when they're comfortable in what they're wearing or who they are.
Oh my gosh. That's so true. Like, sometimes you admire, like, I'll even find myself sometimes admiring something so much. I love it so much. And then I put it on and I realize in the first couple minutes, I'm, you know, twitching, I'm adjusting. And if I see anybody do that when I'm in a session, a wardrobing session, when we're shopping, I tell them, I'm sorry, like, I know you love that, but you can't have it, because you are going to be, you know, trying to rearrange yourself all day long. You look so uncomfortable. Like, no, we can't have that. Like, let's take a picture. Let's think about that piece. Let's love that piece, but you may not own that piece. That's how we decide.
We can always have appreciation for beauty.
We can have appreciation. It's like art. I mean, fashion to me is art that you wear when done right. You know, it's so lovely. It's so beautiful. And, you know, it's emotional in many ways too, right? And I just feel like you can appreciate all those things in something, but some of those, it's not always transferable back to like you and who you are and what you're trying to be. And that's all right.
Yeah. So when you talked about when you are working with somebody, you form very much an intimate relationship with them. They are letting you into their lives, and especially for some of these leveled people in finance that need to be very guarded publicly.
Yes.
You're seeing a lot of behind the doors. And how does it feel to be part of that, or to witness, or in moments almost in history, because you've seen some things over time?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I love it. Like, just, this is maybe going to sound like a selfish thing, but to be honest, like when I'm working with, all these C-level people and they're so powerful and they're literally running the world and they're going to defer to me on some topic. Like, I can't tell you how good that makes me feel. And it's so like life affirming, right? That here's this person who is used to controlling everything all day long. And they're also sort of, I'm going to use the word wise because I think it's applicable here, wise enough to know when they're sort of out of their depth. And it's like, they're happy to just defer to you. Like, I trust you is what they're saying. And to me, that's everything, right? Yes. If you trust me, I will not let you down. Right. And I feel like that's just amazing that someone can give up that level of control when they are not usually like that.
Yeah. Well, I have to imagine that also builds confidence within you, even yourself as a businesswoman.
Oh my gosh, yes.
In knowing and, gleaming maybe hopefully some words of wisdom from them as well as you are giving to them and they are giving to you.
Oh my gosh, definitely. Yes, these are amazing people. And oftentimes if I have a business question, I'll ask them and their input is so valuable. They're so brilliant. And I just feel like I've learned, as you said, I've learned so much from them. It's, a win. That's win-win right there.
So the natural thing that progressed was that you ended up doing these homes. Like some of your clients that said, okay, can you help me with this? Yeah. How has that process of doing interior design versus design styling, because I consider it all design work and the principles to be nearly the same, but how does it feel to work in a different medium?
I absolutely love it. Like, I can't even tell you how fortunate I feel that someone would trust me with that, given I did not go to school for that. I don't have any degrees for that. I mean, it's something that I love and I'm passionate about, but like that somebody would have, again, that level of trust and say to me, I like your taste so much and I like you so much that I'm going to trust you with how my life looks, like what my environment looks like. It's overwhelming. Like, I'm so, so grateful that people would let me do that. And as you know, so one of the things that kind of kicked it off is my husband and I bought this sort of massive stone home that was falling apart, and it took 3 years, but we painstakingly restored it. And in that process, I feel like I sort of got my degree at that point. I was learning so much doing this design build and working with every single type of contractor. Well,
you basically were the designer and general contractor on that project. And this, having been in that home and witnessed and spent time there, it was a massive undertaking. I mean, coming from that kind of background to look at what you did is like, wow. Not only did you do that, take on that project, but while raising 2 very young children, being married, and also running a business. Like, it's not, this isn't, like, again, like you were talking about, like, bringing more on the plate. You just love, this is like another example of like, let's just bring another thing on my plate. I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm a glutton. A glutton for punishment. You're so true. You're so right. You're so right. But so, like, tying back to what you do, you write this book about your environment, how important your environment is, how, it can't be cluttered. It has to represent you. And I believe those things. So, I mean, this is one of the bases of our friendship, right? Like, I believe those things so deeply. And, I saw this home and I thought, oh my God, like, I just saw the potential in it and I had to do it. And it was really, like I said, it was such an education, and it did provide me with the building blocks of everything that I needed to then spin out and help my clients, because the first 2 projects were mostly just decoration, right? Like, it was taking a blank canvas and we were picking finishes and we were picking furniture and so forth. But as you know, I've been working on a project that's, been going on for a while. That was a gut renovation of, almost 3,000 square feet of space in the West Village, combining 2 apartments that were, independent. Right. And that, like I said, gut renovation. Also, so we chose everything. On
top of also dealing with New York City construction, which anybody who has done a renovation in New York City, like there's a whole nother level. Like you can't work during certain hours. There's every neighbor's got an issue with what's going on. Everybody's got to say, like there's planning boards and like all this other stuff beyond just figuring out what you're going to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's been a whole other level of education. Yeah. It's crazy. It's so interesting. And I look at everything like, it's just a means to learn, right? Yeah. So I enjoy it, but sometimes you just feel so overwhelmed by how many obstacles there are. You feel like, how do people do this every single day? Yeah. It's so difficult to get it done, but it is getting done and it looks great. So
yay.
I'm happy. I'm happy.
Well, I can't wait to see what the results of it, because that's going to be super exciting. Now, on top of all this, again, we said that, you, it's not okay just to have one business, 2 businesses, but then you decided, oh no, I'm going to do a 3rd business. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Rogue Paq.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's been absorbing a lot of my focus lately, as you know. So part, again, of being very intimate with your clients and learning so much about your clients is you're dealing with everything. They're traveling, right? So you're not only dealing with, how are you going to transport all your watches if you're a man, or how are we packing your jewelry if you're going on these trips? But, with some people, you witness their ritual, right? Mm-hmm. So people have all sorts of things that, whether it be pipes or rolling papers or, vaping tools or, all these sort of sundry and often very tiny and fragile things that sort of comprise their vape. And what I was seeing behind the scenes were very inelegant ways to corral them. Back to this idea of let there not be clutter. Like, let everything have a sophisticated vessel. Let everything make you happy and look polished and chic, right? Whether people see it or not. Right. And so for many years I did see it, but nobody else did. Yeah. And now that cannabis is becoming legal and people can vape out in the open and people can, in some states, travel with their rituals, I started to fret, right? Like, how are these people going to carry this stuff around and not look, so amateur and junior, they can't, no, that pencil case is not going to work. That is not representative of the person you are and, this sort of style that we've cultivated all these years. Mm-hmm. So I looked and I searched high and low, like what would be the thing? How are we going to solve this problem? And basically I came up with nothing. And so I decided to design something. So for me, it is a 3rd business, yes, but it is like a spin-off of my styling business, because I was solving a problem, right? Like there's no accessory that can contain these tools. What's it going to be?
And this is such a perfect example of what sparks an idea to create a product. And you had a very specific problem you needed to solve. And the best idea
is the mother of invention, right? Like that is so, so true. Yes.
This is all the things that people talk about. Like, I really want to make a product, but like, I don't know what that is or like, what's it going to be? And going down to the fundamental basics of where is there a problem that I'm observing in life, which is what you saw. And then how can I solve that problem?
How can I solve it? Exactly. And so for me, I work with both men and women. Mm-hmm. And so I really wanted a solution that would be, sort of a universal solution. Anybody could carry it. It would look, sophisticated, chic. It would be discreet. Yeah. And that's sort of like the heart of where I began designing this.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm kicking myself now because I didn't bring mine into the room to like show. But this, all right. This also brings up a lot of different, it's kind of like where the world is going, especially in the United States. Like where, like this product would not have been viable like 5 years ago, really. Maybe.
I totally agree.
Okay.
It's just becoming viable now, to be honest, even though there's so many states where cannabis is legal. Like the market is just starting to wake up to the fact that okay, we need to introduce some refinement around this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, just for instance, and I think this is interesting, like why people are now calling it cannabis instead of marijuana or pot.
Right.
Right, like
Yeah.
everything is
It's a
it's a
nuance.
gradual change. It's like
Mm-hmm.
how do we look at this thing through a different lens, and how do we not associate it with all that is bad and degenerate in the world,
Right.
because it's not, you know,
Yeah.
and how do we give it its own personality and its own shape? And I think that that's a very small illustration of how people are doing that, just even referring to it in a different way.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
You know, go ahead.
go ahead,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Because I get so excited. I'm like, go ahead.
No, do it.
Because one of the things that really has brought to light, like in you creating the Rogue Paq brand, I am an avid follower of your social media because you are cultivating this like most beautiful brand. Like this, your Instagram's gorgeous, like everything. And you're connecting with all these different, Rogue Paq is connecting with all these different people within the cannabis industry.
Yes.
Now, I live in a state where it's not legal. And it's been eye-opening to see all this stuff because in like some ways I still am coming from this old school thought like, oh, I can't talk about it because
Right.
it's illegal, you know?
Right. Yes.
The fact is, like most states, it's not. So you have made it very eye-opening to me to see all this stuff going on, like all this art around it,
Yes.
creativity.
It's exciting, right? Like
Yeah.
coming from a design background, like how wonderful is it that there is this component of it now?
Oh, it's
Art,
unbelievable.
photography, like beauty, design, like those things are important as it relates to cannabis, just as much as it relates to clothes, you know? Like
Yes.
that's so great to me.
The other part that I like blew my mind is I was on a trip in Seattle and I went to like a high-end head shop and I walked in there and I was like, oh, like this place was designed to the nines. Like every detail was thought out. It was just incredibly beautiful and it was such a lovely experience. And I just was like, my mind was blown. I was like, wow, this is moving into a whole different thing than it was that what we thought of it to be previously.
Amen, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so fantastic that it is getting sort of as you say, like the attention it deserves. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you called it an experience. Mm-hmm. Like I think like even if you look at any kind of, research today, like people today, where do they spend their dollars? A lot of it's on experiences. It's not so much like it was 20 years ago where everything had to be a tangible thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like people are really putting their dollars behind experiences. And when you walk into a ratty little, shop that smells kind of dank and, it's not sort of waking up your senses, and it just makes you feel like, oh, this definitely is illegal. And it's, you have all these weird associations when something is made to look deviant, I guess. Yes. Really.
Yeah, that's a great word for it.
Yeah. And so when you walk into a beautiful store that's, as you say, well designed and like all your senses wake up, it becomes an experience. And not only are you excited about the flower you may purchase, but the vessels need to be beautiful. The instruments need to be beautiful. And when all those things are beautiful, like suddenly you have elevated your experience so exponentially that that's where the word ritual really comes in, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's something that you would do every day, but you do it with such pleasure. It brings you pleasure. And I think that is, it's everything in life, right? Like,
yes, I'm a huge fan of ritual, the idea of ritual, and that it is very important for us to have it as any form of grounding within our lives.
Agree.
So I just love what you're saying around this, and especially for the two of us who are very design oriented and beauty focused, that the pleasure of including in that ritual, whether it not only is it a process, like you're brewing coffee.
Right, exactly.
But that
perfect.
Everything that you touch to brew that coffee heightens, as you said, your experience and your just everything. Every sensory, you're getting sensory overload. Everything's like just like lighting up. It just makes that ritual a million times better.
Absolutely. And so to your point, like why should only coffee or only cigars or
Right.
only wine enjoy that sort of level of attention and level of detail and level of design?
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, and I think many people in the industry right now, like we believe in it that much that we think that cannabis should enjoy all those same bits of attention, right? Like
Yes.
because it is great. Like whatever it is that helps you sort of unwind or focus or however you're using this thing
Mm-hmm.
to make the whole process be beautiful and pleasurable, I think is a home run. Yeah.
And I think you're the perfect conduit for this because, you know, even with dealing with your clients who, well, let's just say they tend to be more conservative, the more conservative people perhaps in the world. There's always exceptions, but let's just say it's a very conservative clientele that, but they're also doing this. So it's not, it's not.
That's one of the most eye-opening things
Yeah.
is like, it's amazing to me how sort of pervasive this is. It's not limited to one sort of person.
Right. And you also, as in what you do, like in getting into this idea of the conduit, is that you're allowing this for it to be more, I don't want to say natural, but to be more acceptable or more a part of their branding or styling or who they are. Like you're.
Yeah, just destigmatizing it.
Okay. Great word. No, that's perfect. Because I think that is, it's like the way that you allowed me permission to get rid of like all this stuff. It all ties together. Like you are allowing people with beautiful objects to take part in a ritual. And in Rogue Paq's tagline is raise your ritual, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's perfect. It embodies all of this.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think there is like, because it isn't illegal everywhere, many people, my clients included, still do feel a stigma around it. And I think it's something we have to keep chipping away at, but
Right.
it's still very much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as the laws change, it's going to help things. And, the destigmatization will continue, but it's a slow process.
Right.
And I think in the meantime, as you say, like in these sort of intimate interactions, there is this piece of, just touching one person at a time and,
Mm-hmm.
letting them be their true self. Like to me, I've always sort of thought of it on the same plane as alcohol. And for me, it's always been a healthier choice, to be honest. Like I don't feel hungover from cannabis or, like for me, I've always been very productive using it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of fascinated me that so many people have like basically shrines in their homes to alcohol. They have these gorgeous bars built, these wet bars, and they're so well stocked and, parties, everything revolves around, cocktails. And I love that too. Don't get me wrong. But I envision a time when people will have things installed in their home that will facilitate cannabis. I mean, why not?
Yeah. No, this is like
People have humidors.
Yeah.
People have all these other
Right.
things. Like why? I think that's the direction we're heading, and sort of thinking about all the tools and like how to make it beautiful when it is part of your home.
Right. That just makes me think like in 20 years, if we ever look back on this interview and one more talk, I should say, I hope we're laughing like, oh my God, we thought that, like that it is just completely integrated.
I sure hope so. I mean, to me, it's almost ludicrous that it's gone this long.
Yeah.
And it's been, it's actually mind blowing that it's considered like this, a similar offense to like heroin or cocaine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a whole other topic, but it's so innocuous in my mind. It's so innocuous. Like, I don't understand why the stigma actually isn't breaking down more quickly. But a lot of it has to do with laws. So
it does. And I think also with having more people like you to be an advocate where you don't come across, you're not the typical like old school hippie idea that we have of what a stoner is, or like you're even using the term stoner, or these like, again, negative connotations around that. You in particular will help, and other people that are doing similar things for the industry will help transform it, because that's the only way it's going to begin.
I think that's right. And I think as more people step forward and sort of own that part of their life, it's become more accepted.
Right. Because
especially like if you're productive, it's very possible to both smoke cannabis and be very productive. Like these are not mutually exclusive ideas.
No, and I think that is, I'm really happy that you're bringing that up, because it is important to note that has not been something that's typically discussed.
No. In fact, like, again, because of the stigma, the association is, oh, you smoke pot, you are going to, languish on the couch all day, or you'll never get up. You're going to be, I don't know, a time waster, or whatever the case may be. But like, to take one step back and to be like completely transparent about my own experience with it, I began using it as a way to be more productive, actually. Like, I had just had a conversation with somebody else about this, but in college, I was taking 21 credits. I had 2 to 3 jobs. I wasn't sleeping. There was I both bartended and then worked early morning shifts at a bagel store, weirdly. So there weren't very many hours for sleep. And so as I came home from bartending, I would find my ritual. And it was a way for me to wind down and get a couple of really nice hours of sleep so I could get up and go to the bagel store before my classes. So it really facilitated a highly productive lifestyle rather than somehow slowing me down to a point where I couldn't do anything like that. I never had that experience.
Or even currently. I mean, again, look, I have to harp on this because like owning so many businesses, and having a family. I mean, like, your children are still very young. Like, you are very busy. Like, they need a lot of your attention. You need to be very involved. Like, I would never, ever say that you are not productive. If anything, I'm like, I don't know if I could get all this done. I'm like, well, Jessica gets everything done in her day, so I better get my act together.
Thank you, Annick. That's so nice of you.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, and so that's a perfect example. Like, again, as you pointed out earlier, I think the more people who are productive and who use it, sort of as a way to, just wind down, relax, or, enjoy life. Like, it's like, it's fine to work hard, but you have to have some time where you're, you can have for yourself. And sometimes you have to force that on yourself. And if you have a ritual integrated into your life, that's the thing that stops you every day. And it's like, okay, this is my time. I need to reflect. I need to think about what happened here. Like, you can't be go, 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 or you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah, it's the grounding. It's the grounding.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly, you said it before, and you're 1000% right. It's not a crutch either. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people will use it as certain things as a crutch, or like a way to avoid dealing with something. And for me, it's never been that. It's been a way to reflect, not avoid.
That's a very good distinction to make, and very important.
And I know that you think about it, you use it, in the same same way. Like, it's never been something that hinders you. And like, as a creative, as we both are, like, sometimes it's just so illuminating too. Like, you just, I don't know, I'm wound pretty tight.
No, I know. Well, that's why we're friends.
Exactly. And so sometimes you just
like, all the time.
Right. And so talk about like having permission to release.
Yeah. Because like, that's where the creativity comes in often. It's like, you have to put things into practice, and you only become better at your craft through doing it. But there's also, as you're saying, there's that time to unwind. And sometimes when you can let go of having to produce, that's where the ideas, the inspiration, the reflection, like all that comes in. So
true. And that's like, I think, as thinking about starting your own business or being a businesswoman or an entrepreneur or whatever, like many days you feel, and you know this, and we've talked about this before, you feel like you're working like in a vacuum. You're an island unto yourself. You are, one second you are wearing the hat of, negotiator. The next second you're the creative. The next second you're producing something. The next second you're scheduling something. I mean, you're shifting gears so much and so frequently that it's very, very hard to come down from that level of action and activity. And so again, like back to this idea of just giving yourself permission to step back and create. I mean, for me, it's necessary. It's necessary.
Yes. Well, and that is actually something that in having discussions with a lot of my clients, find is that most people lament the fact that they don't have the time to be creative.
Yeah.
That with that kind of intensity and what they're going, and as you're also saying, I think it's very important to highlight what you said, is to take the moment to reflect and slow down, because you can't keep going at that kind of high level intensity. You'll sputter out, whether it's through your health or also through the ideas. Like, you can't build a business without having a little bit of room to like step back and be like, why am I doing this? Is this like the best way to do it? Instead of just being in go mode.
It's so true. It's so true. You can only be like, a bulldozer for part of the day. And that's important too. Like, you have to have that skill too, where you're just pushing and getting stuff done. But there has to be this other piece, or you're going to be moving all the dirt in the wrong pile. I mean? Like, and then it's very, very easy to get off track as an entrepreneur, as you know. Like, you constantly have to be asking yourself those questions. What am I doing? Right. Is this viable? Am I going in the right direction? There are only so many hours in a day.
Yes.
How am I, funneling the energy? In what directions does it need to go today? Like, that's important stuff that you need to be sorting out each and every day, which ties back into your whole idea of clear, and like, how do you get focused, and how do you, sort of harness your energy and then put it in the right directions. And like, all those questions are essential. They're essential.
And also, I think you and I are very fortunate because we have a long time friendship. And one of the things that you and I do is that we meet up, I would say 1 to 3 times a year, where we basically have a mastermind weekend. Right?
My favorite weekends of the year. Yes.
I know. And we're fortunate to have this, but I think both of us recognize that it's important for you and I to have that time, because in working in that bubble that you're talking about, you can really start to work yourself into craziness or just being on completely the wrong path, because there's not a way to speak out loud. I have these ideas. What do you think? And you've always been a wonderful sounding board for me in that capacity.
Likewise. Oh my gosh.
Like, we bounce things off, not only business, design wise, life wise, like all of it. And
checks and balances.
Yeah.
That's why you got to cultivate your girlfriends. Somebody told me that when I was a freshman in college, and I was like, yeah. I mean, I have guy friends, I have girlfriends, whatever. Cultivate your girlfriends. Like, what you and I have developed over these years, it's so irreplaceable. It's so essential. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah,
it's just like those sorts of relationships, particularly when you're an entrepreneur, help to serve as check and balance, help to motivate you, help to guide you, help to shape what you're doing. And you need that. You cannot be an island unto yourself.
No, there's no way.
You can't. I mean, you have to be in touch with the outside world and like get other perspectives, or you're really going to fail to find your market, I think, is one of the biggest sort of negatives that could come of it.
Oh, for sure. And also tapping into different skill sets. Like, even though you and I both have these very similar interests in outlooks on life, like even how, we live our values, we have different skill sets. And that,
oh my gosh,
it's so helpful to me. Like, you're right. I love that term, cultivate your girlfriends, because it is, you and I could go for a long time without speaking. We can come back together. But that being said, we are still have to cultivate our relationship because we have kept in touch all these years and worked together in different aspects, and it's still cultivating a friendship, or like a, yeah, I guess it's a friendship. I don't know how to,
oh, it's like, a friendship. It's like a sisterhood.
Yeah.
And actually, like, you bring up something so important there, because like I again feel so fortunate to have you. Like, so many people don't have anything like that in their lives. But so like, one thing that I'm finding in the cannabis industry in general, I've never had this. I've worked in finance, I've worked in fashion, and like, those industries do not necessarily operate on this like idea of inclusion, even if they may purport to, at some level. They're very competitive.
Yes.
It's not necessarily all about inclusivity. And the sort of beautiful thing that I'm learning in the cannabis industry, particularly with women founders of cannabis brands, is this amazing inclusion, like this warmth and this, just sort of openness to connecting and helping and pushing each other forward and aligning brand wise. And like, I'm not used to that. That's not the culture that I came from in a work capacity. Yeah. It's who I am personally, but like, I've never found that in a sort of a work environment. So this has been just kind of a beautiful, benefit, I guess, of like doing this work in cannabis industry.
That's amazing, and it's absolutely intriguing to me. I wonder if it's because there's really no history to this.
I think that's part of it. And I think another part of it is like the end I'm getting in is sort of like very designy, right? And so I'm finding that most photographers, most illustrators, most artists that are in that piece of the cannabis industry that I'm most interested in are women.
Really?
And I think if you can like make a connection with a woman, it's gonna be stronger oftentimes and last longer. And so it's been really fantastic. And like you said, there's no rule book.
No.
So we're all trying to figure it out together in some ways. Like, even people I've linked up with and I've thought like, oh, I'm looking at your Instagram and you have 100,000 followers and you're in, all these different magazines. Like, surely you're not going to make time for me, or there's nothing you can learn from me. I'll get on the phone with that person 3 hours later. We've helped each other exponentially. So it's been a really good experience.
I also think that it with that, it's also what you bring. And when you said that it's important to you to cultivate those relationships, but also you are very strong in your values. You have a very strong sense of self and your values and like what you believe in to be right in interacting with somebody you're having a relationship with. Like, even though you've been in finance and in fashion, you're never the person that you would think of like the Devil Wears Prada, or, these like traditional, like, that is so not you.
Yeah, that's not me.
No. Having the true sense of self, but also like being really clear about the people you surround yourself with. Like, I think you naturally also draw in like-minded people.
Thank you. I think, you talked about how you and I were raised similarly, right? And I think two of maybe the biggest things that sort of govern our families are work ethic, and integrity. And I think if you're bringing those things forward on a consistent basis, like, you do sort of just end up in the right space. And those things are not negotiable to me on any level ever. Like, that's so important in any brand I build. And I would happily relinquish the brand if those things, were no longer a part of it. So I think you're right there.
You'll still have to go through those struggles or come up against some of those issues. I think it's probably, it's inevitable because we can't be insular all the time, but navigating them, and in the end, I think they always end up winning.
Yeah, agreed. So, and I think that's like, that has been something that, I'm really trying to build into this new brand as well. And it's been hard, to be honest. Like, the thing that's interesting to me is like when you build a brand that's not based on yourself, like Wardrobe Whisper is me.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to infuse that brand with a personality because I am the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rogue Paq has been an interesting challenge in the sense that, here's this thing that I believe in and it looks this way and I wanted to do this thing and I wanted to represent these people, but I've had a difficult time lending a personality to it other than social media, right? Like I can show all these beautiful things, but there's still a heart behind it. And
Yeah.
so, you giving me this opportunity to speak or,
Yeah.
when I have opportunities through whatever media to speak has been so important to me because as you say, like these ideas of, sort of integrity and work ethic and all these kind of things, like I want to associate that with this brand too, because that's at the core of it.
It is. And it also, it's like some of those things you can't show in a visual format. They do need to be verbal or written.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, you know. If nobody
No.
asks you your story, no one's going to know that, you know. And I don't know. It's been very challenging.
You've been getting some really great press. And part of what I find interesting about this and what you just said was I just recently read something from Tim Ferriss that said that whenever he's interviewed, especially for a written article, he will only write down his answers so that he's not misquoted. Which I thought was, and I think it's really appropriate to this as well. It's like, video, you can't get more real. Like, I can't hide who you are on this. Like, you're going to show who you are. And unless you're an incredible actor, like, there's like no way to fool the audience.
I'm not. That is not one of my skill sets.
You just help actors.
Yeah, I'll dress them, but I cannot do their job. No way.
But it brought up a really good point of misappropriation or being misunderstood by your audience. In building a brand, you need to be very specific. And sometimes it's trial and error. Like what works in one way might be good and maybe it doesn't work culturally somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of that is like this idea of finding your market. So, and this even goes back another step to what we were talking about earlier about like, defining your niche.
Yeah.
So as a brand builder and as like an entrepreneur, as you are, as I am, like you have all these ideas about what your thing should be and who should be carrying it and who I'm reaching, who my target audience is. But I think, if you don't take a second to, listen to feedback and hear what people are saying, you can be missing opportunities. And I think because cannabis isn't accepted everywhere and, there are, again, stigma around it, it's been very interesting and challenging trying to find my exact market. Like I have ideas of who it is, but I'm learning more about the people who are appreciating Rogue Paq, and it's helping me to steer my brand a little bit. And that's, going to be ongoing as I see it.
It will be. And I think that is a smart business move because you can will something to be what it is. But in the end, if it's not, in a very business sense, that will not translate to dollars.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you are producing a product, you would like a return on your investment.
Yes. Which is, it's difficult to navigate, right? Like, it's so interesting with social media because you can have all the followers in the world, for instance, and a fellow cannabis entrepreneur said this to me. People just like, they like with their likes is what she said. They don't like with their dollars. Yes. And I thought, you know what? She just nailed it. She nailed it. Anybody can push heart. Yeah, I like that. But when you want to convert that into dollars, you then are forced to connect with your audience in a much more intimate way. Like you have to, be real. There has to be a heart and soul to what you're doing, or you're never going to make those connections and you will never convert likes to dollars.
Correct. And what I keep seeing and like coming up against is like one of the theories is that all you need is 1,000 raging fans to really create a business. And the more that you and I like go on this journey, the more and more I see that being an absolute reality. because you can't be everything to everybody. And this whole like likes thing, it is, social media in some ways can be very aggravating because there's so much talent out there that is not, maybe they may not have the savvy or the dollars behind them to tap into getting the likes, but the product or the person behind it is of much value or great value. So
or conversely, as you pointed out, and I won't say who, but like sometimes somebody's getting all the likes, and when they go to, put their ideas and their stuff forward, it's dubious.
Yeah.
And you feel like, oh, wait, how did I miscalculate this? Everybody likes this person. Like, I felt that they stood for X, Y, and Z, and I thought that they brought so much value, and you realize smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. And it will only get you so far. I mean, eventually, if it's important to you, eventually you'll know the difference.
Agreed.
So what do you find right now with everything that you have going on in your life? Like, what's one of the biggest challenges that you face right now?
I feel like for me, if I'm just dialing it down like pretty granular, the biggest challenge is to continue to find my market. So for Rogue Paq specifically, I launched, sort of completely in September. There were a lot of things going on behind the scenes before that, but September. And so, I have gotten some great press, as you said, and I've, I'm beginning to find homes for, Rogue Paq, but that's where all my focus is right now. It's like, how do you get people's attention, and how do you get their devotion?
Yeah.
Too. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to be doing in 2019. Is like really dialing into that and, continuing to build relationships and align with brands that are similar to mine, do collaborations, like bring all this stuff together and pump it up is what's happening now.
Well, how can people find out more about Rogue Paq? Like, where can they go?
A great place would be my website, which is Rogue Paq, ROGUEPAQ.com. So it's not PACK, PAQ.com. And then there's plenty of information there. There's a press page, which is fun. And then there's also links out to all my social media, which I hope anybody who's listening would join in and take a look and give me your likes, because it's not even dollars. Just likes.
It is. And if anything, if they're smart, they also will buy Rogue Paq, because it is a beautiful, well-executed product. And people need this in their life, especially if they're enjoying their rituals.
Yes, I agree. Thanks, Annick.
No problem. Jessica, it's always a pleasure, really. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for taking time out today.
Likewise. Anything for you, anything, any day. Love you.
Love you too.